Braving the bitterly cold water, volunteers and wildlife officers in the desperate race against time.
What we're seeing is utterly heartbreaking and distressing.
I cried on myself and regathered myself and just knuckled down.
And I decided to come help today because it's just grown up around animals and I hate to see them beached like that.
Nearly 100 pilot whales stranded on WA's south coast. What brought them to Chains Beach late yesterday is unclear.
But when they started coming in, it was like dominoes. They just kept on rolling in.
But there were warning signs. The pod first seen huddling together 100 metres offshore on Monday evening, forming a heart shape just before beaching themselves late yesterday. More than half those stranded didn't make it through the night. Some locals critical the rescue mission didn't start sooner.
It's just sometimes just need action. Too much talking, not enough action.
They had people on the beach early yesterday morning. As soon as they were aware of those drone pictures and what was happening off the coast, they were here when the whales charged the beach.
Authorities say it was too dangerous to move the whales back out to sea overnight. The rescue operation is delicate and no easy feat for the volunteers. The whales weigh up to 1 tonne and specially designed slings are needed to help move them into deeper water. Volunteers staying in the water, floating with the whale pod until they are strong enough to be set free.
There's a bond between the humans and the whales going on right now, and it's special.
There's a young one now that has been crying the whole time, so it can be quite distressing. But it's also nice to see that they are sort of settling a bit.
Each one to be checked over by an expert before they are slowly herded out to sea. The grim reality is even if some are saved, if one returns to shore, others could follow.
And we're going to try and keep away from the rocky points and give them the best opportunity and chance to survive.
Now, despite the cold, 250 volunteers spent hours in the water with the whales today, trying to stabilise them in the hope that they would be able to float on their own. Parks and Wildlife staff admit today's efforts would not have been possible without their tireless work. Now, about an hour ago, the whales were herded out to sea with the help of people on kayaks and boats, but sadly, they were displaying the same unusual behaviour they had yesterday. So they were very tightly packed, they were circling around each other, and in the last few minutes happening now, they have sadly made it back to the shore. So vets and other experts are now assessing them for their condition, and it is looking likely that they will have to be euthanised. But Parks and Wildlife staff assure us that the animals' welfare will be a top priority. So despite everyone's best efforts, now sadly the outcome no one wanted.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. Thank you, Steve.
The odds were against them, but still hundreds of volunteers hoped for the best. Their efforts to help the distressed pilot whales ultimately in vain.
Their efforts were enormous, and as everyone would have seen, the conditions were trying, the water was cold.
Once released, the pod returned to shore. Through some tears, all volunteers and officers could do was try to comfort the animals as vets assessed each one.
It was very clear that each animal was suffering or beginning to suffer, and as time went on, they were definitely getting worse and appearing worse on the beach.
The decision made to euthanise the remaining whales, a possibility everyone hoped wouldn't become a reality.
Incredibly hard, probably one of the hardest decisions in my 34 years in wildlife management. Really, really difficult.
Despite the heartbreak, the mass stranding has a silver lining. The nearly 100 carcasses are a lesson for scientists into the lives of pilot whales. Blood samples as well as swabs from the blowholes and mouths have been collected. The samples will provide an invaluable insight into the species across generations. The makeup of the stranded pod was diverse. It's believed the oldest could have been up to 60 years old.
We're screening for many things like routine organ function right through to various viral and bacterial diseases, and just see what answers we can get from those samples.
Those results, coupled with the rare footage of the pilot whale's behaviour before stranding and the question of why whales beach themselves, may be a little closer to an answer. The carcasses will now be buried. Stephen Thomas for 10 News First.